I kind of did some brainstorming before the show and actually this week, and tried to think of other things that we need to sculpt. And I came up with another thing we need to sculpt for our props. So I went in the garage. I actually had all this stuff set out, ready to be photographed in the garage, but then I realized that we need to add some dirt, sort of at an angle, under our tombstone. Something kind of like this, with like little rocks and stuff on here. So we got to do that. And what else? What else? Oh, hey, Ron. Yeah, so welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome, Janet and Jay Episodes, and Ron and Harley. Nice to see you guys. Ron says Ron flops down in his chair, exhausted, but at least he's here. I hear ya. Yep, it's been an exhausting day for me too, actually. So anyways, let me put this to the side. The other thing we had to sculpt. Now, we've also got, so we did the train, right? We did that. We sculpted our door last time, remember? We got all this stuff out of the way. So we got the hammer out of the way. We've got a ball, we've got a top. We've got this little dirt patch to do. And the other thing is, so here's one of our sets. And now the outside surface is dusty, but it's on the plastic wrap, so that's okay. But we have to add a door back here that we can swing open. That's one thing. And when the door opens, it has to be opened in the next scene. This is the outside of the house, all right? So the character goes outside the door swings open. So I can either have it where the scene changes and then the door is closed here and opens and the character comes out, or I can just have the door opened here and in this scene have the door move out. So the easier thing to do, I think, because this is a larger door, I think I'll just sculpt the door on here. And but it might have to be opened actually later on in the film. So so I don't really know. I might just like make a door that's small and superimpose it on here in Photoshop. That might be the easiest thing to do for animation. But let's see. So anyways, this one here, I think I'll have to, let me take the plastic wrap off. I'm going to fold this back and under. So, what should we do first? I think we'll do the door first, and we'll do this later. So you guys can see what I'm doing. Alright. So, Jay Episode says, I have a question. What clay is good for a clay puppet? Where do you live, Jay? Depends on where you live. Let's see. Which color should I use? I mean, the roof is red. I think red, where's brown might look pretty nice like this. I only got a small piece of this though. So let me see if I've got something that I could do for the inside and outside. I mean, technically what I could do, I could probably sculpt this and then use the same sculpture and warp the sculpture for the door in the other set. That way it still looks like clay and you can sort of cheat things. So I think I might do that. Let's get some of the blue clay off of here. So I'm going to clean this clay up just a tad bit. Not even sure what I made this color for. I have a bazillion custom colors going on here. Something about clay is just so cool. I mean, love the way it looks. I don't understand why. Just genetically predisposed to liking it, but yeah. So that's the color we're going to use right there. So you live in New York. Awesome. Well, I would choose Van Aken clay. You can get it online at intoart.com, IN, and then the number 2, art.com, intoart.com. You can get it there cheap and they can deliver it. You can also look around in hobby stores and craft stores for it. It's just modeling clay. Looks like they've got different packages, you know. So, for example, they've got kind of like this shape of a package, and they've got this shape of a package, right? It's the same amount of clay. It's just I don't really understand why they. So you can see one says 16 ounces, 1 pound. One says 1 pound, 453 grams. You know, so I don't know why they don't use ounces for both or grams for both, but it's the same amount. It's the same weight. So that's what it looks like. And so the Van Aken, you can see the symbol is right here. And on this one, it says Van Aken right there on the top. So that brand is probably my favorite. We also sell puppet putty, which is a kind of it's like this. So we used it for apples in our film. It's a little bit more waxy looking, so you know, if you don't like that shininess, of course you can just use your fingers to get rid of that. But it does kind of tend to look shiny. You know, that's the only problem. But animation-wise, it's one of the better types of clays. If you want to call it a clay, it's not really clay. But in terms of bendability and holding its shape well, it's the best for animation. So what some people do is they buy this, and then they'll buy their Van Aken, and they'll sort of melt the two together to get the properties of the puppet putty. If you don't like the shininess to it. But I mean, you can bend it back and forth. It doesn't crack the same as Van Aken does. Van Aken tends to crack after a few bends. This one here, I mean, you can see I bent it a lot, and there's it sort of holds its shape really well. I mean, there's a little bit of cracking there, but that's like negligible, and you can just smooth it out. So yeah, puppet putty is really good. We sell it at stopmotionstore.com. So either one of those, you can get it at different websites, hobby shops, or not the puppet putty. You can only get that at our store, but the Van Aken you can find probably in like Michael's or Hobby Lobby. Those are 2 places. So to this door here. So I think I'm gonna make this a little bit thick, because I'm probably going to end up animating this traditionally, meaning, so on our house set here, okay, it's almost like a square-shaped door, but I'd like to animate it where you can see it opening and have this edge visible, so you can see some thickness to it, because you don't want the door to be really flimsy looking, right? No, Craft Smart is garbage. I hate Craft Smart. I mean, you can use it. It'll work for a while, but what happens is it tends to... Some of the colors turn rock hard. It dries out and you can't sculpt with it. So that said, I mean, it takes like, a year or 2 before that clay gets hard. But, I mean, if you really want to use clay... or make puppets, you're going to buy clay, and you're going to have that clay sitting around for years sometimes before you need to use that specific color again, and it will just be a waste of money to use Craft Smart. Definitely go with Van Aken. I know Michael's craft stores are going the cheap route. I think, so Michael's, I think they're trying to save money, and Van Aken is a little bit more expensive than Craft Smart for them. So I think they've changed their brand simply because they want to, it's a cheaper product, but they make more profit. Either that, or they just don't care. Or, I don't know. I don't really understand the logic, but Craft Smart it's not very good. And I do believe I made a review of Craft Smart a while back, and I didn't have any. I think I might have said that it's pretty good, but that's before I was able to learn of the problems it has. So So yeah, I do not recommend it. Do not recommend it. Let's see. Superheroes. Yeah, I mean, sure. As a kid, I would read some comics. I used to read. I was never really into superhero characters per se very much. I mean, I was into independent comic books. So, if you know anything about Image Comics, I mean, they have a bunch of heroes, but they also have sort of anti-hero type characters. And one of the comic books that I used to read was The Darkness. I still have all those old comic books. And what else was I into back then? I mean, I had like Star Wars comic books. So I mean, if you consider Luke Skywalker a superhero, then yeah, I'm into superheroes. That's what I was sort of into as a kid and growing up. Star Wars was kind of my life. That was my imagination was always there. I sort of lived and breathed Star Wars. I had all the toys and I had comic books. Okay, so I'm going to cut this to the right shape. I'll try to. So Ron says, I feel guilty because Don Carlson sent me a free sample of Puppet Putty about a year ago, but I never had time to animate with it. It feels great, though. Yeah. Yeah, you should try it, Ron. I mean, you can, I think that would make him happy if you gave him some feedback. He is really trying to make it for animators, and he wants to please animators and make it as good as possible. That's why I decided to sell it in our store, because he's just really passionate about it, and he taught himself and talked to people and learned about chemistry and all that kind of stuff just to make the perfect animatable substance for stop motion animators. And not everybody embraces Puppet Putty. I mean, Webster Colcord, I know he worked with it and used it in some of his characters for I think the Primus video he made, and I know he liked it. The guys at Robot Chicken, I think Don told me that the guys at Robot Chicken bought a bunch, but they never ended up using it for some reason. I think it was more because of they were going to make some sort of a California raisin thing, but I don't really know what happened. I don't really want to speculate too much, but it wasn't because the Puppet Putty's bad. It's just they didn't get around to using it for some off-the-wall reason. I just can't remember what it was. I know Don made mention of it to me, but I can't remember now. Maybe he can leave a comment after the show if he watches this. So Jay Episodes says, did you make any puppets with Van Aken? If so, which ones? Yeah, I mean, you can see here, I'll get rid of this webcam for a minute. So this character here on the left he's made completely out of Van Aken clay. The Mad Hatter. So you can see him right there on the left side of your screen. That's 100% Van Aken clay. Now the eyeballs are Delrin. That's different, but everything else is clay. So yeah, I've made tons of puppets out of it. It's definitely the best clay that has been around for years. Before that was Avalon. And they don't have a label on this one. This is really old. This is like 20-year-old Avalon clay, but this is one of the clays that you would use for puppets way back in the like 70s and 80s. It's great too, but and I don't know the entire history, but Van Aken is really top-notch stuff. Alright, so with our door, I'm just going to add some details here. A couple of lines, and then a couple lines on the back. And I think I'll have maybe a yellow handle. Kind of keep the colors almost, uniform on our house. A little hair on there. Okay. Door. And I think I'll go with the lighter yellow, like the bright color, because it's like metal. It's like a metal. I don't know. Gotta make sure that the door handle's on the right part of the door when it opens as well. So maybe this way and this way. This is going to be animated, so I'll have this kind of swinging out and open this way, so you'll see the two handles, and then finally the other side. That is going to be the plan. Okay, so that's going to be out of the way. Close this up. Put the plastic wrap back on this one. Put this aside. Okay. So now for our tombstone here, I think that what I sketched here is probably good. Need some brown clay. Again, this is Van Aken, so this used to be 5 pounds. This is like a long bar of clay, which I've used a lot of, so it's smaller. Yes, you can buy Van Aken in 5-pound blocks. So this has some different colors kind of mixed into it, like there's some green and something else that bled onto this. And I'm going to try to use that random color scheme, turn it into a ball. And so where the colors are, I'm going to sort of smash it flat. It's like a smiley face. I'm going to smash this flat and shape it into what I need. I don't want it to be perfectly clean looking because it's dirt, you know. Pencil. California raisins were Van Aken, and I think they also used Pongo clay, which was a clay that was kind of similar to puppet putty, Pongo. And it was very waxy, and they would mix and match color. It wasn't just one kind of clay brand that they used for their characters. They would mix in different stuff. So you'd have Pongo, Avalon, and Van Aken were the primary ones. And they also would mix in like mineral oil and I believe beeswax. So they can make the consistency different depending on what they needed it for. So if it was going to be a really hot environment, like it's summertime, they're going to do a lot of animation, and some of the animators would complain, oh, my characters are melting under the hot lights and it's getting too hot, what should I do? They would go ahead and mix in, like your beeswax to firm things up a little bit, from what I understand. So that's something that you know, you might want to ask somebody who worked there, of course. You know, like Will Vinton maybe. I mean, he's on Facebook, but there are people that work there that could answer that kind of question more specifically. Because I didn't actually work there myself, but those are just things I've heard, and experimented with myself. Like if you add mineral oil to your clay, it does become a bit softer. But I'm not much of a chemist. Like I have messed up some of my clay before by doing stuff like that. Okay, what I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna sort of add like little spheres of clay, and then I'll use a texture pad on this as well. So let me get, I've got some other kind of browns I can use on this to kind of, again, make it somewhat random. And also, see here, I've got some gray clay as well. So I'll add like some little pebbles, I think, after I use my texture pad, which is where? Over here. So here's our texture pad, nice and rough. And make sure there's no dust or anything on it first here. So I don't want dirt in my clay, even though the clay is resembling dirt. So I'm just going to kind of press it in here. Okay. There we go. There's the result of our texture pad. So you can see it's more like somebody just piled up a bunch of dirt. And so that's pretty nice. And now I'm going to put some gray pebbles in it. Janet says they bring back characters from old canon, and I don't know what books, comics I should read. Ken says, read them all. The old canon is called Legends. So how many puppets have I made? I've made a bazillion puppets. I don't remember how many. It's been a lot. I mean, I've made them for, for professional reasons, where we've done animation for TV commercials. I've done them for fun, and yeah, I don't know, a lot. And of course, I've made many experimental puppets when I was first starting out, a lot of which didn't really work out for me. When I say didn't work out, what I mean is, I didn't know what I was doing when I was younger, of course. Like when you're first starting out, nobody really knows how to make a puppet properly. You gotta learn. And so I learned by just experimenting and trying to figure it out. And then when I got work at like Gentleman Films, things really took off for me in terms of my understanding of where I went wrong, what was proper, what was not proper for armatures and things like that. I mean, there are right and wrong ways of making an armature, and I was unaware of that, when I was younger. So, of course, if you want to consider those really puppets, yeah, they were, but they were junk. I really. But puppets that actually are professional, I've made, maybe, I don't know, I mean, must be like 100 at least. Seems like. Okay, so we got our dirt pile here, and This is one of those things where I'm probably going to lift this up like this. So, or I'll photograph this separate and combine these so that it looks like these are, because right here you can tell that there's like the tombstone, it looks like it's on top of the dirt. And I'm going to want it to be like this. So when I photograph it, that won't be a problem. That's no big deal. Okay, so what else? Now, we've got a ball and a top to make as well. So maybe we can do that next. And the question is, what color to make them? Maybe the ball I could make using... Actually, I could use some puppet putty for that, because a shiny plastic bouncy ball, right? This would actually work out really well. I've got this, and this is actually a glow in the, not a glow in the dark, but I've got this laser pointer that you can see that it will sort of really shine brightly on here because it's a purple laser. So for like black lights and stuff, you can see that it just emits a lot of light. It's really cool stuff. I don't really know what kind of pigment is in there, but it's super bright when you touch it with the pen like that. With your blue laser pen. This is great for effects too. If you do long exposures in Dragon Frame or Stop Motion Pro, do a long exposure with your camera. You can move your laser around and make all sorts of like lightning and all kinds of stuff, or some sort of magical looking streaks of light around things, you know. It's a lot of fun to mess with. So yep, that's puppet putty. This is what you can find in our store. It's really cool. I think we're only down to one package left though, because we sell out so fast. And so I think I need to tell Don. Actually, I think I did tell him. Yeah, I did. Last time I made a payment. All right. So, anyways, so let's see how this works out. I'm gonna try and soften it a bit with my fingers. Turn it into a ball. Here we go. See what you guys are saying here. So Ron is saying, the only clay animation I ever did was my first experiments when I was in high school. After that, I switched to rubber puppets. I need to post these early animations to YouTube. Yeah, but what about in the Fall of Gravity, Ron? That character was clay, right? The white character? And Ken says, that would be really cool, Ron. Please do. Yeah, I'd love to see that. That'd be awesome. Okay, so I'm going to mix in some darker green that I have here with some puppet putty. Just to get a different color on here for little dots. I think I'll use dots as a pattern. So Ron says, I animated them with a friend who moved away. He had them and I lost track of him for decades. Last year he contacted me through Facebook and he sent me a DVD copy of them. I was so happy. Cool. And Jay is saying, do you consider stop motion studio on the phone is good for starters? Yeah, anything is good for starters. Anything that works, you know. It's not going to be great, but if you're wanting to learn, you know, the basics of stop motion, you can totally use a phone app like that. Sure. Yeah, maybe that's what Ron's doing. Alright, so, let's see here. So hopefully this will look like a ball. So my plan is to animate this using Photoshop, squash and stretch. Just taking one photograph, and if the character bounces it, that's what I'll probably do. You can roll it around or bounce it. I have it has some simple animation that way. Actually, I think I can do squash and stretch right in Moho, actually, so I might not even have to do that. Yeah, you know, mixing Van Aken with this Puppet Putty, it really does work really well. Smoothing out great here. Seems to smooth better than just Van Aken by itself. Because normally to get a sheen like this, I would use mineral oil. But I guess there's enough oil in it that it just works really good by itself. Stuff is pretty darn good. Oh yeah, so I don't know, I guess Jay, by the way, I use Sargent Art modeling clay also. We saw this in our store too. I forgot to mention this. This stuff here does not dry out, and it's not entirely the same as Van Aken. I would put this on, you know, equal grounds as Van Aken. So if you find Sargent Art in a craft store, this works really good too. Forgot to mention that. So anyway, so we got our ball here. Now I think I'll probably just texture this a little bit to make it look a little nicer. It's a little bit simple. Go like this. If something doesn't look interesting enough, that's when I try to add more detail like this. There we go. So there it is. It's be like a ball. Character can bounce it up and down. And I'll put this Puppet Putty away. So we need to make a top. This is going to be simple to do. Thinking. I'll use Puppet Putty for that too, because I got some of this here, which is some blue. Actually, I think this is light blue. Is it light blue or just blue? I can't remember now. We've got these 3 different colors, and this would make a good top. Let's see. Here we go. It's a little bit dusty though. I hate that. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to make like 2 little tops, because I want to have a animation cycle as it spins. So it's a different colored blue than the train, and it's also a little bit shiny, kind of plasticky looking, you know, and Most toys are like that, so this works out really great. Oh, okay, Ron. So it had just clay joints. I got you. So not a purist sort of claymation style character. You know, I've got some other puppet putty. Let me see something here. Where did I get that? I've got some purple puppet putty, but where did I put it? That would be really good for this. I put it on my desk. No. I hate losing stuff. Let me see. Oh, here it is. I found it. Alright, purple puppet putty too. Maybe I should make... Actually, I'm going to make the top out of this and put little blue details. That would be nice. Just using my tool to kind of cut it off. Huh. Cool. So they're interested in some more Dynamation style animation. That's awesome. Yeah, I hope that stop motion shows up in more features, but it's pretty hard. A tough sell, I think, lately. Which it really shouldn't be, you know. That's the thing. Well, at least to me, the benefits are extremely apparent, you know. I mean, especially with so much computer animation these days. It's like, you know, if you want something unique, go with stop motion, but Janet says, but Legends Comics is too many. Ooh. Yeah, there are a lot of comic books out there. If you go to Barnes and Noble, wow, they've got so many books. Like anime and all this kind of stuff. We had some friends where their daughters were into the anime stuff. And yeah, people get really into that stuff. I mean, it's... Let's see here. So, this will be the bottom of the top. And I'm going to try to round this off a bit. Hopefully I won't screw this up. So when you sculpt something, you can always go with geometric shapes first, you know, and then round things out later. Because the geometric shapes are what kind of get you to make the correct forms and to make everything symmetrical. Whereas if you just go ahead and sculpt something, sometimes it's hard to see because curves are harder to see than facets. You know, like if you think of a diamond, you know, which is kind of like the shape I'm making here with little facets. Facets are the hard edges, and you can see, you know, for example, this one has This one has more of a larger facet than the other one, so I can match those, right? I can try to get the facets to be the same, and then I know that when I smooth both of these out, that the general volume and form and the shape will be pretty close. So anyway, tops are very simple. It's going to be a really simple thing. But since these will be a replacement, this is going to be two different replacements. And I might add, like in Moho, I might add like some little motion swish lines, you know, as it spins. Just to give the illusion of more movement, because these are small props. I'm just going to kind of cut the little spindle parts. Cut this in half. That'll be the top. And these parts, I'm going to use my sculpting tool. Where's my tool at? It's over here. Just kind of smooth all this up. I noticed with Puppet Putty, I think Don Carlson also made mention, he asked if the tools stick to the Puppet Putty as you sculpt. And it kind of does. So what I do is I kind of press the clay into shape with my tool, as opposed to dragging it, which is something that you would, you know, Van Aken, you can kind of do that a bit nicely. So I'm just going to go like this instead. So the properties of all clays are going to be slightly different from each other. There's no way around that. And there's no real, like, you know, which one is better, which one is worse. You just got to kind of modify your sculpting habits a little bit, and you can make all of them look really nice. One particular kind of clay that I just completely hate is the Chavant clay, which is the hard version. So I don't know if you guys have ever sculpted in that. It's almost like sculpting in crayon wax or something like that, you know, trying to sculpt it. And it's so hard. It's almost impossible to, you know, like what I understand is if you use that hard Chavant, what you're actually doing is you want to sculpt your stuff in a softer clay. So Van Aken or Roma or, you know, Sculpey or whatever you prefer. I mean, some people actually like sculpting in Sculpey. And then while it's still soft, you make a mold, and then you would like pour in molten hard Chavant. Oops. And then from there, you can just like sculpt the details, you know. But for general sculpting, where you start from scratch, if you start from scratch with that stuff, it's really hard to push around, and so you kind of want to use like really hard clays for any sort of detail work where you're making a mold of it and then casting it and making it like plastic or plaster or something like that. You don't want to use any of those kind of clays for animation purposes. That stuff will not work. So try to avoid Chavant clay. Unless you have a very specific need for it, it's not something you want to try to use. Alright, so we got our top. This one. And then this one, I'm going to put the handle on here as well. So the only thing we need to really think about here is the design. So I'll show you guys a little close-up. Handle came off. Stick that back on. So really simple. and I'm gonna probably just put like 2 little lines across as a design, and then some little dots of a lighter blue clay. This is puppet putty, which is a, I forget which, or is this turquoise? This might be like turquoise. It's kind of what it looks like, but that's the plan. So I'll kind of line these up, and then just to make sure that all of it lines up. Put those 2 lines on, and then just kind of go all the way around. Again, I'm sort of pressing it with my tool as opposed to dragging it, or I can roll it. This way you're not dragging the puppet putty with your tool. I mean, you can drag it. I mean, it's not going to really be messed up or anything, but it does require a little bit of cleaning up when you drag it, I noticed. So pressing it will work very nicely. Just like that. I'm going to do that with this one. Pretty easy to do. So if you guys are worried about sculpting and it's too hard for you or complicated, it's just a lot of little steps like this. And then the more steps you sort of add together, the more complicated the sculpture becomes, and it seems like, oh wow, you know, that person's a great sculptor. But it's really just, there's just a lot of these little steps. And you put them together and eventually something starts to take shape, you know, so. Oh, so Jay is asking, am I making more episodes of Zombie Pirates? The first one was good. I'd like to see more. Well, that was one of those things where I wanted to make more. It's just a matter of I don't have the space, and each episode takes so long to do. Because I really want to have, I wanted to have 2 pirate ships, you know, like, or 1 pirate ship and then 1 ship, which was the Defiance, which you saw in the first episode. And so you would have like 2 ships that sort of are out at sea, and the whole premise behind the story was that it was like a cat and mouse kind of game, right? So they would always be trying to get each other, and there would be all this comedy, you know, in the process. So, you know, I had it planned out where I would have, you know, 1 ship where the whole entire base would be put together, and then you can just take the sides off and put on the other sides for the pirate ship, you know. But even still, the amount of wood and everything and the amount of space it took just to do that was so much, and I've only got 1 garage to work out of. So, you know, it's just one of those things that I just can't, you know, I can't feasibly do what I want. Okay. So anyways, so here we have our top that's done. Cross that off of our list of things to make. Got this done. What else was there? So, the last thing to make, let's see, we got 10 minutes left, but I think I'll just do it anyway, is to make a couple of these like cloud balls, or smoke balls. I don't know what you want to call it. But these characters are going to get together in a mass, and they're going to sort of go on a rampage. And so we need this kind of ball like this of dust. First I want to put all this puppet putty away. that won't be too hard. That's going to be a simple replacement system, and I'm guessing maybe 3 replacements would be enough. Because with those 3, I can sort of spin them around, and I can make essentially 2 replacements out of 1. Because there's no real cycle to it. It's just going to be randomness. Should be kind of interesting to animate. Okay, so here. Alright, try to stay organized, right? I try to. It's not always easy. Okay, so kind of move this stuff out of the way. Alright, so here's a nice big block of Van Aken. This is a 5-pound block. This is ivory colored. And I'm going to use ivory simply because I don't want to... oh, the top part is really greasy. You can see how the grease kind of comes out of it after a while. This is on the top, but you can scrape that off. And it's nice and perfect. Yeah, so I'm going to still use it though. I'm going to just fold it over. But yeah, your hands can get kind of messy, of course, when you work with clay. So I'm going to cut off chunks, and with my cake icing tool, and kind of figure out about how much I need. So I'm thinking if I have 3 replacements, dropped it. The next question is like, do I want to use the texture pad on this or not? And I'm thinking no. This is probably pretty close to the right amount of clay that I need right here. Maybe just a little more. Okay. Put this away. So what I'll do is I will sort of ball this up and divide it into 3 so that each one will have about the same volume of clay. It's like maybe a 1/4 pound of clay here. So make like a little, I don't know what you want to call it, a rod of clay. I'm going to cut it into 3/3. Like this. And then from there, smush out each one. Alright, so these look about the same size. I think that's pretty close. Doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to take the first one and I'm going to sort of make these little balls out of it. I'm going to stick them all together to make something resembling a cloud. Yep, not too many people call for clay animation these days. Everything is done on computers, for the most part. But if you want to sort of, get involved with clay animation and stop motion, there are a lot of great outlets for it, like the Stop Motion Montreal Film Festival. those guys really support stop motion in a big way, and they always have guests and they have workshops and everything. If you go to our Twitter account, so Animate Clay on Twitter, I just retweeted this one guy who's going to have a workshop, and I'm not really sure if he's going to do specifically clay animation, but it's something that you can learn a lot from in terms of just doing general stop motion. You can check it out on there, and Stop Motion Montreal on their website. So there are outlets for it, and there are people that do teach it. Besides myself, I teach it, of course, through our webpage and everything, but through our YouTube channel. But there's just there's a lot you can learn. There's books out there. We've got our book. If you go on Amazon.com, you can find a lot. Not so much clay animation oriented, unfortunately. I mean, like I say, that's a really niche thing. Like urban animation is a very niche kind of stop motion place that they used to do that mostly with clay, but now even they've gone into other materials like silicone and plastics, which is fine. It's just not the purest way of doing it, like what Will Vinton used to do. Alright, so we got our little poof cloud here. And we'll have our characters' arms and everything sticking out of these as they're replaced. So I'm not going to, as I do these, I'm not really worried about making these as a sort of cycle. They're just randomized. So this is going to be totally fine the way it is. I'm just going to kind of go around and form it. Just kind of blend it together a bit. So I don't want it to look like a rock. It has to look kind of like it's poofy, rounded. Might be kind of a nice thing for me to do if I sort of make these as not just replacements in a cycle, but make it semi-transparent using, like I say, either Photoshop or I'm not sure if Moho allows that as an option. So by the way, this is the last thing, the last three things we're going to do for our sculpting tonight. But I wanted to remind you guys that we do have a 5-week challenge, puppet making challenge. So there's only 1 week left. If you guys want to hone your skills, make sure to check out our 5-week challenge area on our website, animateclay.com. Check it out. And if nobody enters this time, I'm not really sure if we're going to continue our challenges or what we're going to do. I'd like to, but it just depends on what their participation level is. We just got to be honest, if things are not, if people are kind of tired of them or something and don't have time, then we just need to adapt. It's just kind of a shame, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Oh, Jay is asking, so do you still have the raisins puppets? I love them. Yep, I still have those. I have one that I created from the Bebop sculpture, which I made based on an actual one. So I took measurements and made one of those. So I still have that, and I've got the originals. I still have my Domino's Pizzanoid as well. Yeah, I wish they would still make those like the originals and put them on television. That would be awesome. I mean, I'd even be up for doing that myself, making some sort of raisin TV show ads. Or especially the Domino's Pizzanoid. I mean, that was That was one of their best characters, their best mascots, and they haven't put it back on TV in for years. But that's how things go, right? Nothing stays the same. Alright. So I'm not going to smooth this out just yet. I'm going to leave this the way it is, and then I'm going to smooth these out all together. That's one puffy cloud. So Ken says, although Aardman does not do as much with clay anymore, I do like how they are using more of a variety of textures now. Early Man looks great. And he says, Moho can make layers transparent. It's a great compositor. Awesome. So Jay, are you asking how many raisin puppets do I have? I've got 3 of them, but they're messed up. I mean, they were in a box and they got smashed, when they were shipped here. So I have them, but they're not in good condition at all. So that's why what I did is I didn't want to sculpt on the originals. I didn't want to modify them because they're kind of, they were pretty almost beyond repair. But that's kind of why what I did is I reproduced them instead. So I used the originals to make measurements. And when I made the bebop, I made sure that every measurement I made was transferred over to a new sculpt, and then I used reference pictures from what's his name? Peter. Yeah, what's his last name now? I can't remember. Peter Marathew, that's his name. Or no, Tony Marathew. Tony Marathew. God. Because he was one of the guys that sculpted the original Domino's Noid and some of the Raising characters as well, the early ones. But, so he had photographic reference of the Bebop character. So Tony Marathew, yep. Man, I'm really bad with names. So Kent says, maybe you can make the challenges seasonal rather than monthly. Yeah. I think people will forget about them if the time is too long, though. I think people are like, I can wait 6 months before I begin, So there's also that problem. Because I remember we did extend some of our challenges in the past really long. And people would still make stuff at the very last minute. So we could try it. That might be a good thing if we could just, do it like a 4-month thing, or could also be, I know that Anthony Scott started making those stop mode jam things, and I think people started doing that too. And so, it's kind of like you're spreading out a lot of the the pool of animators out there is pretty small, so the more stuff there is to do, it's kind of like you got to choose like which one do you want to do, and then if you want to do both, it cuts into your time. And so probably people that were doing my challenges, were not doing his, and vice versa. So maybe I should talk to Anthony and just be like, why don't we just collaborate on one giant one or something? Because pretty much anybody that visits my webpage visits stopmotionanimation.com and goes both ways. So I mean, I'd love to do a collaboration somehow, just to join forces. Especially, I know that this came up a few weeks ago, I guess, but so Google does not put us in the same category as it used to. Like it used to, if you typed in the word clay animation in Google, we would be number one for years, on their search. And we were really fortunate that we had that, that luck, because for whatever reason, Google really loved us. So if you type clay animation in Google now, we're on like page 4 or 7 or something like that. And if you type in stop motion, Anthony Scott's webpage has also been like demoted. It's not. It used to be number one for years and years, and that was like the greatest thing for us, because we're trying to promote stop motion and foster the community and try to take care of people and get them educated if they want information, and just help out. But Google makes it a bit harder now, because I think Facebook, the Facebook groups out there are so numerous, and it's like everything is spread out, and the search engines don't really rank us the same. So it's bad news for stop motion in terms of the internet, for sure. So I think collaborating with people is probably where I think we're going to have to, if we're going to really survive as a community and all of that, I think we need to sort of figure out ways to work with the internet, Google and all these companies, and figure out how they work and try to stay on top of things a little bit. But I guess if it's not a matter really about like trying to be the number one web page or anything like that, but if there's like a way to help people in some way, like like maybe I should, on my site, I should probably list all the Facebook groups where people can find them, or have like one repository of just all the pages that are out there, and which ones are best, which ones are not as good, like rank the Facebook pages or something, or I don't know. But make it so that people can find where everybody's at. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, where is everybody? And how can we get everybody on the same sort of page? And because it is really spread thin. Like if you go on Facebook, I don't know how many stop motion groups there are, but it's probably like 50 of them, it seems like. And there's also reddit.com. That's another web page that's really popular. And they have their animation subreddit, and sometimes people post stop motion films there, and then what else is there? I mean, there's Twitter, and I think most of the people are so spread out and they don't really know where to go. It's just sort of a random mess out there. There's no organization to it. All right, so that's the second one. So now I'm going to make the third one out of this ball. Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, that's the whole point of our website, is just to answer questions, and so people understand how to do stop motion and what tools are there, and clays and techniques. So Jay says most people won't answer my questions. So yeah, that's the thing. Like if you go on Facebook, there are people that will post stuff and post little films and things, but it's not a really strong community. It's not like the people are there to help each other out. They're just trying to become famous. Like, oh, I made this. Look what I did. It's not so much how can we, explain how we make our stuff, and what are the tools that we used and all that stuff. Like I was just saying, like how, what is the technique you use? Do you use like a flying rig, or do you use surface gauges? Do you use like an iPad and an app on it or something? That sort of thing. So to me, that's important. I don't know. I think maybe the importance of that, most people don't see that as important. It's almost like a popularity contest these days, and it's not bad. It's great to market yourself and to get out there, but to I don't know. I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but it's kind of discouraging. Like what Jay is saying, people don't really want to answer questions. And me, I'm just like, I'll just tell you all the secrets. I'm just like, here you go. And then people use that, and you see the results. Like, people will actually show you what they've created, and it's really cool. So anyway, Owiski says that Animate Clay is on the 4th page last year. It was on the first 5 list on the first page. And Ken says, I primarily stay on Facebook because it's convenient to keep in contact with friends and family members. Yeah, that's how it is with me too. I mean, if it weren't for that, and a lot of my business contacts are on Facebook, it's how we communicate, so I don't really have much of a choice there. I cannot just turn my back on it, because that's a lot of where my income comes from. But I totally understand if anybody gets off Facebook why they do it, because it is not necessarily bad, to prioritize your life in a more productive kind of way. That reminds me, Wee Beast. Stop Motion Magazine. I ordered a copy and I never got it, so I don't know. I want to read it, but I have not received it, so I don't know what's going on with that. And Weeby says, have you... Ken says, I have, but not recently. And Ron says, I've been in a few issues of Stop Motion Magazine, but something weird happened there recently. I'm not sure about the future of that publication, sadly. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I'm not the only one. Not the only one. But I'm not going to go into a gossip rant right now about that. So let's see here. So we got... I'll keep this a little bit more round. This would be pretty good. I think that this would be a good random cycle here for this. But yeah, so there's a lot of websites out there, that have come and gone, and nowadays it's just chaos. There's no one particular website, one particular Facebook page. There's not one particular Twitter page. And that's not to say that there should be monopolies either. It's like you don't want to have a monopoly on... I mean, it's actually good to have other, web pages that are similar and all of that. Absolutely. But, it's like, where do you start? And you're kind of lost. It's kind of like you feel lost in the community. If you're starting out, it's like... there's just too much to choose from. And it almost seems like web pages are not even as relevant these days. Outside of maybe for newspapers, that have gone online. There's a lot of that. But who here actually visits websites often, like every day, to check in? And there's like a few art web pages, like ArtStation, that are really cool. But it seems like there's not too many. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that, but it used to be that it was all websites, all message boards that were put on them, And that's what people used to visit, were the message boards. And then MySpace came around, and that didn't really change things too much. But then with Facebook, that's when they sort of monopolized everything. They had their Facebook groups, they had their fan pages, they had ways to post your pictures and do that while connecting to your family and your friends, and it was all in one spot. So, yeah. It definitely changed everything for everybody. So, Jan says, I hate cosplay groups. You ask and they answer. Search in Google. Really? I don't know. I've never tried to ask questions in a cosplay place, but Ron says, yeah, I chose to stay out of that controversy, but I got all the emails, and that became a big email fist fight I decided not to be part of. Okay, yeah. You know what? It's just the way it is. Stop Motion Magazine and John are just, yeah, they're neck deep in drama and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's what everybody's saying. And I've also been a target in the past as well. I've been a target. I didn't even do anything. So I just kind of, yeah, I don't really get too involved in that stuff either. I just try to do the best I can with my own webpage. So, I don't know if you guys read, but Clay Mara, who used to post a lot of videos on her YouTube channel, so she changed her name to Tamarami on YouTube. And so she tried to change the whole format of her, what she was doing in a sense. And so she has deleted her original Clay Mara webpage, or YouTube page. Let me clean this off here. Little bit dusty, okay. Don't want to get dust on these are white. But, so the reason I bring that up is, she says she has all of her original videos on her computer, so hopefully she'll transfer those over to her new channel. But I think she wants to make either a new channel or change her name again, so I think she's still trying to figure out what she wants. She's just sort of experimenting. I think she tried to do like a YouTube thing where she would make videos once per week. By the way, I'm just using some mineral oil inside of here, these are just paper towels. So I poured some mineral oil in here, and just to get my fingers to be a little bit oily but not saturated, and then I just kind of go over my clay like that. But so Ron says, people keep finding my website, keeping me in business. I'm happy about that. I really need to update it, but can't find the time. And Janet says, I ask how to make glowing a necklace. How to make a glowing necklace from cartoon? Oh, okay. Oh. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos on stuff like that. There's a lot of ways to do that. Glowing necklace. Ron says, I remember that you said you were a target and found out it was true when I read all that. That was crazy. Yeah, I was accused of something silly. Yeah. I just do my thing, and people sometimes blame me for stuff. Like I have some sort of agenda or something. It's like, I don't have an agenda. I've been running my website since the year 2001. think so. Lionel Orozco, Anthony Scott, and myself were like the first three people. There was also Stop Mo Shorts, but we were like the first three people to actually have websites for stop motion. You know, for one of the first people, and I've been, I posted news about stop motion for how many years, and I got blamed for doing that because I was taking away from somebody else. That was one of the things. Like I had some sort of agenda, and it's like, no, I have an agenda. I'm not in some hyper competition with everybody. Just doing what I've always done. So yeah, I don't know if that's the same thing that you're talking about, but that's basically the way that I understood it. Yeah, it's pretty sad, but I know where it's coming from, and I understand. Not everybody is of perfectly sound mind, so that's all right. I'm Mr. Rogers kind of person. Well, I'm definitely not perfect. I'm not that perfect. That's for sure. So Janet says, after the show I send you what Netflix. Okay. Yeah, Janet, if you want, I'll look at it. I'll see what you're trying to do. I gotta get my son to sleep here pretty soon. He already started school today. I'll try to wrap this up a little quick. Still gotta take a brush and get in all the details, but yeah, I don't know. The thing is people can blame you for stuff, and then word gets out about what those kind of people are like, and then you just kind of go, well, eventually people will figure it out. There's no reason to get into a fight. It's like, well, you can blame me all you like, but there are people that were doing things way before some other people were doing them, and it's not that big a deal. Okay. But yeah, there's way many stories going on about that kind of thing, and like I say, people will figure out who is not being rational. All right, so when I do, I'm just taking a brush, which I've cut the bristles a bit short on. Let's see if I can show you. So these bristles are kind of firm, but still not so short that it's you can't bend them. And I'm just taking and put in my little thing of mineral oil, and I'm going to go in here. Oops, a little hair there. So I just go into the cracks of what I've created and kind of blend it together a bit. Kind of soften up the tool marks. Make it look more like a cloud. So I don't want a lot of hard edges on here and stuff. That. Turn it a bit. And when I start photographing these things for importing into Moho, I plan to I'll go over it with my tools and make sure it all looks good, and then after that I can even go in Photoshop, and if there's anything on any of these that I missed that looks weird, or after I photograph it, I can always kind of clean it up a bit. But I want it to be pretty. I want the whole thing to look like a piece of clay. I don't want it to look digitized, you know, so I don't want to really rely on Photoshop if I can help it. There's nothing wrong with using digital tools, but if you're making a film that's supposed to look like clay animation, you want it to definitely retain all those qualities that you're, you know, putting into it, right? This is probably not too bad now. Alright, so that's one. This one to the side. So let me show you guys. So roughly that's what it looks like. A little cloud, ball of cloud clay. So, yeah, that's right, Ron. Yeah, people know. People definitely know. You don't have to tell anybody. They'll eventually find out. Pretty much anybody that I speak to has a story, so I am not worried. Yeah, I mean, there's some, like, you know, people that will want to help you have a different attitude than people that want to take things, you know, want to just step on other people. Yeah, I shouldn't say too much, but. So Ron says, get rid of the dirt in Photoshop, but leave the rest alone. Yeah. Exactly. You don't want to really overdo it. Yeah, like, I mean, even art and animation, if you study some of what they do, they were using a lot of silicone for their last film. And they would try to retain, like, the fingerprints and stuff. They would, like, sculpt stuff in clay, have fingerprints in there, and they would not try to remove it. That was sort of the cardinal rule of the studio, was do not make it too perfectly smooth. And I know that Leica doesn't really follow that. You know, they are not so much into the tactile look. They're sort of into making stuff look really polished. And there's a different sort of charm to each of those, right? It's like one is kind of CG-like. I mean, it looks almost like computers in some respects. And you kind of have to stop and think, is that, you know, a Pixar film, or is that something, you know, done by hand? And most people would say that stop motion from Leica does tend to lean towards the CG side in style. And that's because most of the characters are made in computers, so of course it's going to reflect that a bit, that sort of perfection and symmetry and all of that goes with it. You can make stuff look almost mechanized in style that way. And that's not to say it's bad. It's not really bad or anything. It's just a preference. But the art world is really saturated with that. It's just, try and put a human touch to it a little bit more, and it makes a big difference. So that's two. Gotta wrap this up. It's already 9:30. It's the last one. So, yeah, enough said. Yep. Weeby says, wow, sorry to mention the magazine. I brought it up as an example of different print media to look for advice. I should have said sooner. No, that's fine. That's totally fine. It's just our experience with the magazine. Yeah, it's not your fault. Definitely not your fault, Weebeast. But yeah, every industry has its dramas and all that, so it's not like you can't really avoid it, right? Oops. Alrighty, so let's see. Yeah, Cinemagic is a good magazine. I mean, I've got a bunch of those, but nowadays everything, like I said before, is gone to computer graphics. Well, not everything, like some of the Star Wars films, they try to rely on model building and all that, which is great. But when you mix it with CG, it also you're like, is that CG? Is that is that hand built? I remember when Rogue One, the coming attractions for that were, I thought that they were using models in there, and I thought, wow, how are they filming those? Because they were using all kinds of these like wavy effects, lighting effects and things, and I couldn't figure it out. And turns out they were computers. I was disappointed. I was like, wow, this is the best. These are the coolest models, of photography effects that I've seen. The models were, pretty much okay, but the atmospheric look that they gave them, I thought was beautiful. Because there's somewhere, I think there's like, there's a shot where there's some Star Destroyers, and then there's the TIE fighters that come out of them, and they were flying around in sort of this sunset environment, and it just looked awesome. And I thought, wow, if we can really do that with hand-built models, we've really advanced. But it wasn't the case. I'd really love to go and see a lot of the... I know there's like a Star Wars tour sometimes that goes around the country where they set up all the models and all that kind of awesome stuff. A lot of the characters and lightsabers and everything. I'd love to go see those in person. I've never seen any Star Wars props, in front of me before, but I really admired anybody that could do that. It's like Neville Buchanan, who's also working on his stuff. He's got a lot of actual model kits that they've built for his stop motion project, and they look awesome. I mean, there's something about model kits that just, you look at it and, at least for me, it sort of draws you in, into your imagination, and you feel like you could really be inside of a spaceship or something that you're flying by, and you don't really get that kind of feeling from CG so much. Like computers, when you use them, you think, well, it's just a wireframe and there's no substance or weight to something, Whereas real model kits, you feel like, wow, I could really be on that TIE fighter or X-wing, or inside of a Star Destroyer or whatever. So yeah, that's where my imagination was when I was a kid, and I guess that really affected my attitude towards those things today. I'm not really sure if audiences today feel the same about that like I do, but I know there are some that do, even like in the like millennials and stuff. That all right, so here's our last little puffy cloud ball. So I could probably just clean this up a little bit more. We can call this done. Let's see, what time is it? 7 or 9:36. It's getting late. Okay. This is probably good enough for now. So when I photograph all this stuff, I might clean it up just a tad bit more, but there you have it. So we created our little puffy cloud balls. We have our dirt patch. We have our door done now. We have our little bouncy ball and the two little tops. So these will be the replacements. And that should pretty much do it. So I believe that I'm done having to make stuff for the film now. But we will see next week. We will see. If I can think of anything else, surely we'll sculpt it. And I'll probably start photographing these on my own probably later this week. All right. Well, anyways, that does wrap up our show for tonight. Thank you guys all for stopping by, and I will see you next week. See you later.